Alright, what's going on, guys? Welcome to TC Soft Tech. I'm Tochukwu. Today we'll be looking at HTML. What is HTML? HTML is Hypertext Markup Language. It is the structure of the web. If you are going into web development, you need to start with these basics. HTML structures your website the way it should be. Let's use the human body as an example. The skeleton is the main structure of the body, upon which the flesh and every other thing is built upon. So in the same way, that's how HTML works when it comes to web development. The HTML is the structure. It handles the layout and the structure of the website. And then you use other things to beautify and make it more interactive, like your CSS and your JavaScript. All right, without wasting much time, let's get on to what we have. So we'll be needing a code editor or an IDE, as the case may be. It's dependent on your choice. I'll be using Visual Studio Code. You can download that by visiting Visual Studio Code website. There are other code editors like Sublime Text, Atom, and the rest of them. There are a whole lot of them. So just go with what works for you. All right. So now we'll be needing to create a folder where what we want to create is going to be. I already have a folder here, HTML basics. There are different ways I can open my folder in my Visual Studio Code. One of them is dragging the folder into Visual Studio Code, and it opens in Visual Studio Code. So up here, you can see we have HTML basics. Let's enlarge that, which is the folder I created. So opened in our Visual Studio Code. Another way we can do that is by clicking on File, clicking on Open Folder, go to my desktop, which is where I created my folder, and get HTML basics. Select folder, and that opens also in my Visual Studio Code. You can see we have our HTML basics here. Another way we can do that is by going to the folder you have, which you want to open in your Visual Studio Code, select it and right click on it, and then choose the option Open with Code, and it also opens in our Visual Studio Code. Alright, now let's start with creating our HTML file. To create your HTML file, you simply come to this place where you have your HTML basics folder. You can use the shortcut. This is for creating a new file. This is for creating a new folder. This is refresh, and this is for collapsing all the folders you have. So you can simply just click on this, and it gives you a space where you can write the name of your file. You can also decide to right click and select new file. I prefer this method. So I'll do this, and I'll give this file name index.html. And once you've done that, you will notice that the symbol next to the text change to less than and greater than sign, which is a tag, and it's the symbol for HTML. So I will simply press enter, and it opens over here. Someone might ask, why do I have to use the name index? Now, basically, whenever you visit any website, it loads up a particular page. That page is usually the index. By default, without specifying the path to the index and calling the index.html, your browser automatically knows that the first file it needs to load is your index. So that's why we use index.html for the first file that loads on the browser. Okay, so over here, we need to do something. Using Visual Studio Code, it makes a lot of things a little bit much more easier. We have what we call image abbreviation, and this helps us to bring out some snippets of code without having to write them all over. Okay, so I'll be bringing out the HTML snippet which we'll be working on. So you can do that in different ways. You can simply type HTML5. Just typing HTML, you'll see suggestions coming up for you. Image abbreviation, you can see that. So this is HTML, this is HTML5, and this is HTML XML part. This first one is for HTML4, and this is for HTML5, which is the current version of HTML. And that's what we'll be using. So I'll simply do this, and I'll have my HTML5 snippet showing. I can also do this by simply typing exclamation mark and selecting the first one. You can see the email abbreviation suggestion what it is, and I'm still going to get the same thing. All right, let's look at each line of code and explain what it does for us. Over here on the first line, we have exclamation mark doc type HTML. Okay, what this line of code does is telling us that this document is of type HTML. The basic difference between HTML4 and HTML5 is in the snippet is HTML4 doesn't have this doc type. So whenever you see a HTML code starting this way, it's actually using HTML4. So this is HTML5 that we're working on. And then the next line of code is the HTML tag. Now, this HTML, you see, when I selected it, it selects the closing one. This HTML tag is the parent tag that you have in this snippet. It embodies every other thing that we are going to have. So every code that we're going to write, everything we are going to do is going to be inside here. Okay, so nothing is going to be outside like down here, but all inside. So this is the parent tag, and inside it you now have the head and the body. The head is basically where you have some data describing some things, some instructions that help the website to render very well. And then in the body, that's where your main code, where you do whatever you want to do, whatever you want to show on the browser, it's going to be inside the body tag. So now let's look at the things we have in the head tag. We have the meta tags, two of them, and the title. These specify the character set we are going to use. So meta tag that specifies character set, and we're going to be using UTF-8. And the second one is for responsiveness, the viewport, how it's going to be viewed. So we are setting the width to be the device width. So if you are using a laptop, it's going to use the weight of your laptop. If you are using a mobile phone, it's going to use the weight of your mobile phone. And we are setting its initial scale to 1.0. And lastly, we have our title, which is going to be the title of the website. Okay, without wasting much time, let's save this and open this in our browser. Let's see how it looks. So to open this in our browser, first of all, we need to save, Control S to save. And I'm going to right click on the index.html over here, right click. I'm going to do copy path, and then I'll open my browser. Okay, on the address bar, I'm going to paste. You can either right click and paste or paste and go, or you can just do Ctrl V to paste. So click on this and it loads this. Now you can see this is a blank page. It's just right. But if you look up over here, you see documents, which is the title of what we have. If you look at this, our title is document. So I'm going to change this to my first web page. Okay, save this and over to this place. Immediately I refresh. Over here, you can see we still have document. What I need to do to see the effect or the changes I've made is simply to click on this icon and it refreshes my web page, and I have my first web page as the title. All right, now in HTML, I usually prefer having my Visual Studio Code set to auto save so that as I'm making changes, it's saving after a minute, a second or two. So now when I make changes to this, let's say web pages, just to see, you see, after some seconds, it's already saved. That white circle, something that indicates that it's not yet saved, has been there. If I refresh, it changes to pages. I won't be using that. I'll leave it as HTML page. Now, the things you want to showcase, you want to view on your browser on this white space should be inside the body. So let's just write chunk of things and we'll have this over here. You can see that up here. This doesn't mean that if I write some other things outside here, let's say some other things, that is not going to show up over here if we refresh. So we still have that, but this is not the convention. We cannot have the ability to style these and work on them when they are not where they are supposed to be. So everything we want to show on the browser, the white space or the white area, should be inside our body. All right. So we're going to start with few tags. But before that, you've heard me say tags. I call this the parent tag, the head tag, the meta tag, and the rest of them. Now, HTML is made up of different tags. Now, these tags is what they use in describing the elements. HTML is made up of different tags, and most of the tags have the opening tag and the closing tag. Now, if you look at our HTML, when you double click on it to highlight it, it shows you the closing tag immediately. The basic difference between the opening tag and the closing tag is this forward slash. So wherever you see the forward slash before the name of the tag, it automatically tells you is the closing tag of a particular opening tag. So the body is the opening tag, the slash body is the closing tag. And the tag is simply our angle bracket, less than sign, and then closing bracket. Then inside it, you have the tag name, let's just say tag, and you have the closing tag as angle bracket less than and the forward slash. This is how HTML tags looks. Now, whatever you have in between this is called the content. And from the opening tag to the closing tag is the HTML element, including the opening tag, the content, and the closing tag. So that's the HTML element. Now also, I said most of the tags are made up of opening and closing tag. Most of the HTML elements are made up of opening and closing tag. But then there are some that still doesn't require closing tag. We call those self-closing tags. For example, my BR, break tag. So doing this is correct because it doesn't require closing tag, and also doing this, closing it before you start, is also very correct. So either ways, that's how you have a self-closing tag. All right, without wasting much time, let's get into doing the right things. Now, when I wrote something here, bank of jokes, if you look, we have that showing up here. But then, to structure this, which is what we are doing, to structure this, you have to do some things the right way. So I'm going to do, for my heading, I want to create a heading. I'm going to use h1 tag. Now, when I type h1, due to image abbreviation of Visual Studio Code, I'm having a suggestion on how it's supposed to be. So all I need to do is type h1 and select this or press enter. I'll have my h1 tag up there for me. So let's say intro to HTML. Now, when this saves, if I go over to this place and refresh on my browser, I have intro to HTML. Now, if you look at this that I just wrote without any tag and this that I wrote using h1 tag, notice that there is a difference. So the h1 tag is for heading. This is creating heading in HTML. You use h1 down to h6, h1, h2, h3, h4, h5, and h6 for creating our headings. The h1 is the biggest, the thickest in size, and the most important heading. So when you're creating your website, your most important heading, the main thing that describes what the website is all about, should be your h1 tag. Then we also have the h2 tag. Let's say a sub heading to h1 tag. Okay, so save this and go over to this place. When I will refresh, you notice that it's slightly smaller in size compared to this. Also, the thickness reduced. So h1 tag is bigger, thicker, and the most important, followed by h2. So let's use the basic writing context where you have your main heading, you have a subheading to that, then if there is another subheading there, you still have that. So in that order, that's how it keeps going. My h1 to h6. So I'm going to just duplicate this and make this my h3, make this my h4, make this my h5, make this my h6. And obviously this is going to serve as a sub to h2 tag, sub to h3 tag, sub to h4 tag, and a sub to h5 tag. All right, so if I save and refresh, you notice that they keep reducing in size and in thickness as I move down the lane. So the H6 is the smallest in size. This is even smaller than this junk without tag. So please do not do this. We don't need this. So I'm going to remove that. So that's how we create our headings. We are not just going to start writing H1 to H6, but knowing where to use them. So you will be using this as the most important, just like I said, followed by this when you have a subheading to what this is introducing. So in that order, you know where to specify the right one. Then, aside our headings, we have the P tag, which is for paragraph. So I'll simply type P and use my email abbreviation. Now, if I say this is my first paragraph, so saves, go over to this place. When I refresh, I have this is my first paragraph. Now, if you look at this, it's slightly bigger than this, but when you look at the thickness, even though this is very small, it's still thicker than this. So these ones that are thick are the heading. Whereas this is my paragraph, and there is nothing like P1, P2, P3. It's just P for paragraph. So let's say this is another paragraph. So save this, and when I refresh, I have this is another paragraph. Now, if you look at it, both of them are of the same size and thickness. So nothing changed. Paragraph is paragraph everywhere. So I'm going to just use a dump text lorem to have a bigger text there. So I'm going to do lorem 100. Now this saves, and when I refresh, you can see my paragraph when it is a little bit more than just a single line. So this is how your paragraph looks, and this is how our heading looks. So you use this heading and paragraphs to create content. So I want you to try this out on your own. I want you to create something using HTML and display it on your browser. I want you to create an essay, any essay of your choice about anything you want to write, narrative, any type of essay you feel like writing. But I want it to be in such a way that you have different headings and subheadings, and then the paragraph. You do this, you use it to create something. And it could also be an article. It doesn't necessarily need to be an essay. You can get any article of your choice, an already published book, use it, just write out stuff. Try to make efficient utilization of your headings and your paragraphs. That will be all for today, guys. Thank you for watching. Please do not forget, like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Do have a nice day.